Hi there, my name's Zach Bridges and I teach Tuba and Euphonium at the Shenandoah Conservatory. I'd like to offer a few quick ideas for how to work on this year's All Virginia Euphonium Etude. To start off, divide it into sections. This is a big etude, there's a lot going on, so rather than trying to tackle everything at once, I'd recommend breaking it into smaller sections. For me, I like to think of this in 3 sections, measures 1 through 10, pick up to measure 11 through 18, and then 19 through the end. Another thing I'd recommend would be half-tempo practice. Simply just taking things, giving yourself a baseline, and allowing you to build coordination and ease from the very beginning. An example of that might be at the very end, where at the poco vivo it's marked quarter note equals 120. So I'll just put my metronome on 120, but play the 8th note at that speed. Another idea I'd like to offer would be to isolate and simplify. There's several tricky passages or tricky measures in this etude, and I'd isolate just those trouble spots and work on them and simplify them. A nice example might be measure 7. We have these ascending fifths, and it gets kind of rangy. So I would just turn that into an easy exercise. I'm going to slur everything. I'm just going to play maybe a note at a time, try to connect everything and get it in my ear before I start working on the coordination of adding the tongue and all the 16th notes and things. Again, just isolating and focusing just on that measure. Another idea that I'd like to offer would be skeleton practice. In measure 16, you see we have all these running notes, all these running 16ths. So if I was just going to make a skeleton or an outline of that, it's just a simplified version, I might try something like just taking the first 16th note out of each one of those 4-note patterns and turning it into a quarter note. Then I might play the first and third 16th note. And then finally string everything together. Another quick tip maybe for measure 17, we have these B naturals couple times in that measure, and that's pretty tricky to coordinate. Usually if you use 1, 2, 3 on most euphoniums or most brass instruments, it's going to be really sharp fingering for that that particular partial. So typically we might use 2 and 4 because that's going to help bring that pitch down. However, at a really quick tempo, that might be a little harder to coordinate, going from 2 and 4 to 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 2 and 4, right? That's a little bit trickier to coordinate. So you might want to consider, maybe want to experiment using 1, 2, and 3, just because at a faster tempo, you might be able to find that coordination being a little bit easier. So just a thought there. Another idea I'd like to offer would be to rest as much as you play. It's really easy to just practice things over and over and start getting tired, and we're kind of beating ourselves up, and then we don't progress as fast as we would like to. So if you're doing that, maybe play a small passage, maybe play one of those sections I mentioned earlier, or a couple tricky passages, a couple tricky measures. And while you're not playing, try going through that resting. Try going through and doing some wind patterns at the beginning. Wind patterning and fingering along at the very beginning might look something like this. Again, resting as much as you're playing, that rest is an active rest. So you still want to be counting things out. You want to be singing your parts, maybe doing wind pattern, fingering along. The whole idea is that you're still practicing, you're still working on things just without tiring your face out as much. As always, practice with a metronome, use a tuner, record yourself, and if you have any questions or anything I can help with, please feel free to shoot me an email at the email listed below, and happy practicing.